We're just going for it. Well, guys, how's it going out there? Ooh. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, good night. However, wherever you are, whatever time it is. How you guys doing? How are we doing in here? Currently brimming podcast ladies. Anything you want to say?
A little hot.
It's a little toasty in here. It's a little chilly outside. It's a little toasty in here. A little stuffy. Yeah. We're getting ready to rumble. Christina, how you feeling?
Good.
We are on fire tonight. Heaven, how's it going?
Woo! And the neighbors.
I'm sorry I asked. So, yeah, guys, welcome to the currently brewing cop. It happened again.
Did you say cod?
Yeah.
Did you say cod?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my goodness.
It's not what I wanted. This isn't what I wanted. Welcome you guys to the Currently Brimming podcast.
Yeah.
We are here to talk about how to experience fullness of joy, as brought to us from Mr. Paul Tripp's Wednesday Word. So, how about we just hop on in and get started with our discussion?
So we'll go right into the Wednesday Word from Mr. Paul Tripp. We've got the link down below. We're just going to kind of quickly summarize a part of it. So please go read the whole thing if you desire and if you want to know more. And we'll link it down below. But since this is about joy, I guess Mr. Paul Tripp is a big baseball fan or football fan, both of them. Okay. I'm also a big football fan, so I kind of get where he's coming from. But he was talking about joy that he felt when his team won. Maybe sports aren't your passion, but you don't have to look very far for other sources of faux joy. We careen from thing to thing, hoping the next pleasure will give us the emotional high that is mistakenly called joy. Faux joy makes you smile for a moment, but leaves you empty and searching again before very long. And he gives a couple examples on possessions, on food, on entertainment, on work, and on people. And then he says, real joy, however, is more than a temporary elevation of your emotions. In fact, you could say that real joy is fundamentally more than an emotion. Joy is an inner peace and rest based on what you know to be true, resulting in a life of thankfulness and expectancy. Real joy is not just a feeling, it is a lifestyle. It is not the result of things that are happening around me, but a sturdy rest and peace that I bring to the things around me that change the way I think about and interact with them. Real joy is vertical. It results from being in a personal relationship with the Creator and Ruler of the universe and resting in His plan for the world. Real joy is rooted in a belief that what God has told you is reliable and accurate. Real joy is rooted in a radical recognition that God is working His unstoppable, wise, and gracious plan, that He will not relent until His will has finally been done. Real joy recognizes that God's victory is your victory. Real joy looks up to God and beyond to eternity, resting in the certainty of His power and His plan, even though things at the moment may be confounding and hard. And when nothing appears to make sense, you can awake with the confident joy that His plan is marching on and that He will win. An unwavering joy that does not melt in the face of difficulty is found only in knowing God. And I want to end with this Bible verse that he provides, one of them that he provides, which is from Psalm chapter 16, verse 11. And it goes, "You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." Amen. Do we want to start off with a little discussion?
First follow-up question that we have today is, what has provided you with an emotional high recently? Why was it so exciting? So one of the things that I really liked from the passage earlier from Paul Tripp was that he said real joy is more than a temporary elevation of emotions. And actually, because of the coronavirus situation, we haven't been able to do some fun activities at the gym. And so we've been doing PE in other ways, but today was the first day in 2 years that we were able to get together, and we were just so emotionally elevated in that moment, and the time of just being together, and it was great to see, and it was great to feel. But at the end of the day, not to say that that was wrong or bad to feel those things, but probably tomorrow we'll reflect on the day and say, oh, it was a good day. But it's not a lasting joy. It's something that will be good for the day, and it will make us smile and have a good memory, but it's not an inner gladness. I looked up the word joy in Greek, and it's translated into kara, and that means inner gladness. And in the Bible, it's meant to say that this means rejoice because of grace. So, yeah, I think that just really reinforced what he was saying about having an inner peace, an inner joy that we get from knowing Christ. So I was encouraged by that. Yeah.
Well, I think when we were reading up on this subject, I was thinking about the difference between happiness and joy, because people can use them interchangeably, but that is a mistake. So read your dictionary, people. No, it's an easy a mistake to make. But basically, like happiness, you become happy based on your external circumstances. Like, oh, I'm so happy my friends came over, or I'm so happy I can, eat this delicious food. Like, it's like kind of temporary things. But joy usually comes from a different source that doesn't necessarily have an expiration date, I suppose, in a way. It's a bit harder to maybe define at the moment, because I put my dictionary away. Excuses. But I was just thinking about that difference of like what makes you happy and then what makes you joyful. And yeah, there's so many songs, I feel like, that talk about like, I'm just looking for my happiness, or if this makes you happy, or, like whatever the song lyric is. There's a lot of like talk about looking for their happiness, or like, I'm happy because blah, blah, blah. But, and that's great. They're good things, but there's a difference between happiness and joy. So this Wednesday word is about like finding our joy in God and what he has done for us, that is coming from like an everlasting stream, or everlasting source that will not like expire or go away. That's different from just being happy. You can be happy for a lot of reasons that are good, but yeah, I was just thinking about those things. Nobody asked me. Nobody asked me this question, so I'm probably just throwing a wrench in the works, but I was thinking on that first.
When I read this, I was like, man, I am struggling with this right now. I'm struggling with this season. And I guess when, I don't know, it's just, I guess, like this it's like when I feel like when I think that I'm going to talk about a topic, like I feel like I should be okay with that topic or that theme or that subject, right? And, thinking like, oh, I got it all under control and here I am talking about it. But no, here it was another reminder that, guys, we're not, at least we're not here talking about this because we know everything and we've got everything under control. Like, I know I definitely on this in this topic today. So yeah, for sure, I've been struggling these days with but like trusting that that God has to be the source of my ultimate joy. And yeah, it's a struggle. It's it's a struggle. It's I think it is easy to say like external things never gonna take away my joy. And yeah, it won't. It won't, because we trust what Jesus has done for us. But the problem comes when it doesn't take away our joy, but it goes so close to replace it. I've been struggling with things that are creeping in to try to steal that joy, or replace. Not steal it, but to replace it and say, okay, this will provide me with ultimate joy, or creep in and try to replace the peace or the comfort that only God can give, and come into my mind and say, yeah, this is going to give me ultimate peace and joy and comfort. And that's exactly what idols are. And then, when I get, where I am right now, when I get, when I listen to those whispers, and when I listen and become like, oh yeah, maybe that's right. Maybe this thing does provide me with so much joy and so much peace and so much comfort, then that's when my joy in Christ is not enough. And yeah, that's where I am right now. That's where I'm struggling. And so I hope that, through this discussion, like, I'm encouraged.
There's this book called, I think it's called like Courage to Have Joy or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but I think that they turned it into a Bible study, and it's called Courage to Have Joy, and it's when we don't feel God's joy, how can we find it, And so that kind of naturally leads into this next question. What has God promised and provided to you that is deeper and more permanent than temporary created pleasure? Create a list to remind yourself. Like a more recent trend these days is like a gratitude journal. Usually, like, oh, I'm thankful for this, and you can experience some temporary happiness, right? But I think what this question is saying is, if we are reminded of God's promises, then we can find His joy. So what are some promises that we can brainstorm together?
This is so easy. Where did God say, I will never leave you, forsake you? He probably said that in like multiple places,
I think the first part is like
Deuteronomy 31 something. Yeah, there's so many good promises in the Bible that God gives us. And if you know anything about the God of the Bible, he doesn't go back on his word about any of them. So that's one. It's a big one. About when he says to whichever Bible character he's talking to, like, I'm going to bless you and your generations to come. And Abraham and like other people. Abraham most. Yeah. When he's, he'll say, "Oh, I'll show favor to your house," or "I'll do this or that." They're different. He doesn't go back on those blessings he gives to people. Or he'll be faithful even though we're not faithful, which is great because we fail a lot being humans.
I was just reminded when Christina talked about that book, Courage for Joy. Courage
Courage to have joy.
Courage to have joy. And it's so true. It's so true that you need... I think joy is another spiritual discipline. And, I think I mentioned this earlier, but it's a discipline because we need to be disciplined to do it. It doesn't come naturally. And it's, Paul in a lot of his prayers, and this is just an example in the Bible. Yes, Paul.
Just joking.
That's so true.
Oh, courageous joy.
Oh, courageous joy. Yeah, he prays for... Paul prays for strength in a lot of his letters, and Ephesians 3:16-17 is just one of them. That according to the riches of his glory, he may grant you to be strengthened with power through his Spirit in your inner being, so that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith. And so why did he pray for strength and not just for more knowledge, spiritual knowledge, or for more whatever, right? And because we need strength. We need strength to remind us to have hope. We need strength to remind us to have to trust. Those things don't come from just more head knowledge. It comes from just having the strength to say, to hope, and I, it's not easy. I was also reminded of, so we have a sister in the church called...
Shout out time.
Shout out to Hannah Shoji.
I love Hannah Shoji.
Yeah. So, I was telling her, it's hard for me. It's learning to trust God and the things unseen and stuff like that. And she said, yes, when we can't see is when we need faith. It's great when it happens automatically, but sometimes it's by faith we hope. By faith we declare we are satisfied, and by faith we delight in him. And it's true, sometimes we don't see these promises. We don't see them in front of us. We don't, the promises that are in the Bible, in the Old Testament, they don't seem tangible to us. And it just feels like sometimes it's not relevant to my life. But that's why we need strength to have faith, because that faith is that step toward, okay, I don't see it, but I'm gonna believe. And yeah, it's by that faith that we can hope, and by faith that we can declare that, and by faith that we can delight in him.
So, we've just been talking about the courage to have joy. And then I was reminded of the verse in James 1. Commonly known in the translation, the NIV translation, consider pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Why would pure joy... Why would the testing of your faith and trials be considered pure joy? And then it goes on to say, because it so that we lack nothing and that we can become mature and complete. But I mean, and then I looked it up in another version, and joy is now not used as the word joy, but it's the word gift. When we're experiencing our deepest lows, that means he meets us with nothing else but him, you know? Yeah.
I can only speak from experience. I'm just thinking of like, the couple trials that I've, I guess, been blessed or been gifted to go through, right? And it's always, both of them has always been when something that I love or something that I find comfort in or something that I found joy in has been taken away, right? Because why would we struggle? We struggle because what was good, what we loved, what was comfortable for us was taken away. And that was definitely the case for the past two trials that I felt like I've had to go through, was things that, and now looking back at it, they were idols. They were idols. They promised me they promised me comfort, and they promised me joy. And at the end of it, I had to learn that was all it was. It was empty. And that it was fake and it was false. It was faux joy. And I guess through those trials is when we really were empty. And so that's when we learned that, only it's really only in God. And so maybe that's where the joy comes in. I'm taking this class called Gospel-Centered Living from our church, which has been amazing. One of the things that our brother Ben said that just sticks with me throughout the whole, these past few weeks, is that he said, when we realize that our ultimate need in life is satisfied, everything else is just gravy. Everything else is just the frosting on the cupcake. And when we truly realize that our ultimate need in this life, the only thing that we need in this life is satisfied already, everything else is just like great, just blessings upon blessings and gifts upon gifts. And I think when we forget, or when we don't preach the gospel to ourselves, and when we don't remind ourselves of the wrath that we are saved from, that's when we tend to forget, like, I guess there's more to this life that I can get joy from. There's more to this life than just being saved from whatever, we're gonna be in heaven where there is no death, where there's no pain, where there's no struggle, where there's no hate, where there's no sorrow or troubles or anything like that. And we get to sit in the same table with Jesus. Like, what? And then we get to sit in the same table with God. What? And that just hit me, like, when I was just like talking about that to myself, I guess. And then I was reminded of the verse from 1 John, I think chapter 1, verse 3-4. And he talks about, I want to proclaim these things to you of the eternal life and so that you too may have fellowship with us. And indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. And we are writing these things so that our joy may be complete, or that your joy may be complete. And it was a great reminder, like, yes, my joy is complete in the fact that, like, I have fellowship with Jesus and God. What? And it's just, yeah, that was what, it's not, and I still struggle. Like, even knowing that, I still struggle. But I think the more that I at least preach the gospel to myself every day and remind myself of what I'm saved from and what I have, a promise that I have secured in front of me, I think that's when it helps at least a little bit. How about for those who don't know Christ? And if they ask, okay, why is my joy found in God alone?
So I mentioned earlier, unless it got cut out, which is fine, that
was funny.
that happiness is a temporary thing, but joy is an eternal thing. And so everything else that you can find on this earth is a temporary thing, right? And like God is eternal. And so where we can find like real pure joy is in a source that is not going to fade or die, and what the source that gives us life and gives us purpose and meaning, right? So that's, thank you, dictionary and the Bible. It can be that, in a way, that simple to distinguish. Like, I can get happy with a lot of things, being like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that like the new season of this show I've been watching is on. I'm so excited. I'm so happy about that. But like when the season's over, like the hype like fades again, right? Like The Chosen. Don't do this. No, I was thinking of other shows. Thank you for keeping it godly, but yeah.
What shows were you thinking?
I don't want to talk about it. But that's not a show, silly goose. But no.
Silly goose.
Silly. But yeah, so there are certain like tangible material things that can make us happy. But after you get your fix, or your kind of like medication, that fades, right? Because it's like, okay, well, I watched that show, or I read that book, I ate that delicious meal, I'm in a food coma, the food coma ends, I'm like, that was a great memory, but now it's over, So eternity found in God through his word, and that's where you can really find joy. And like, yeah, I feel like I always say my point and then I just repeat it 3 more times in my like filibuster. But yeah, where you find your purpose and your joy. Yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that. The eternity part, in that God is the only thing that will be forever existent. Omnipresent. No, that's always present. What's
infinite, eternal, unchangeable in his being, wisdom, power, holiness, justice, goodness, and truth.
Infinite. There we go. Yeah, he's infinite, and so that's never gonna die. That's never gonna fade. Yeah, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about two things, and one is that God created everything in this universe, including us, and his purpose for us was to glorify him and delight in him.
Mm-hmm.
And so if that is our purpose, as you said, if that is our identity, to glorify him and delight in him, then where else, right? Where else is he's not saying delight in other things and you'll find joy. It's like, no, when our delight is fully in God, that's when we're complete. Like we're doing what we were made to do. We were created to do. And that was one thing. The second thing was we can find joy in God because it is a relationship. And we can say like, oh, work gives me, if someone says, oh, work gives me joy, achievements give me joy, or, a TV show gives me joy, or, what else is there? Sports gives me joy. Well, those are not a relationship, and it's one-sided. And
It's consumption.
yeah, it's consumption. And when you like feel joy when you know that the other person is delighted too, like the other person's delight like brings you joy. And I think that's the thing about relationship with God is like when you know that God is pleased with you, gosh, that gives me such joy and such delight and satisfaction. And when I sin and I know that like, oh man, like, yes, I'm not like cut off from God, but I know that this relationship is slightly marred. Like I feel slightly farther, like I can't go fully to him because I know that like he's not pleased with me in that moment. It's that relationship. It's that relationship part, and just knowing that when I'm fully satisfied in God, he's fully satisfied in me. I think that relationship part was what being in a relationship with God, who never fails, never disappoints, never breaks your heart, never disappoints you, and all these things makes you angry or sorrow or leaves you, with false expectations and false hopes. That's the relationship I think that you want to be in and want to delight in, like that, in God delighting in you kind of thing. It's like others focused, that puts you in a place where you're focused on others, like someone else that's not your own. Like as you said, the whole consumption thing is all like for me. I want it for me. But then doing something so that others can be delighted, and I'm not saying that God needs us, but still like wanting wanting that, like for God to be pleased and delighted in his creation. That puts us in a perspective of like, oh, I want to serve you and I want to glorify you. Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. I like the mention of the one-sidedness for sure. Because with like the materialistic consumption of things to be like entertained, I was thinking of there's the I didn't read it, but there's a book by Neil Postman called Amusing Ourselves to Death that was written like in the 80s. And it was about how people are like consuming so much entertainment that it's like we're like withering away because we're just like always distracting ourselves. Amusing Ourselves to Death by Neil Postman. This is not a paid ad. But I was thinking like it's always kind of been an issue with people just trying to fill a void or something with like wanting to be happy, wanting to be entertained. I guess this goes back to another conversation we probably had about that. But I was also thinking of, your Shakespeare maybe, but I love Twelfth Night, and there's a character where he wants to like woo this lady, but he doesn't like talk to her. He's just like laying on his couch like very melodramatically, and he's just like somebody, like all his servants are like standing around like waiting for him to like tell them to do something, and they're just like, he's just having a moment, and there's somebody playing the piano, and he's just like so dramatic, and he's like, if music is the food of love, play on, give me excess of it. And it's like, he's not even going out to like get the girl, he's just like saturating in like the vibes, like by himself. And it's like, it's like not a relationship. He's like, he wants a relationship, but he's not like actively like going after it. I'm sure that's exactly what Shakespeare wanted to bring to life. But I was thinking of that, with the one-sidedness of that. Some culture for you. Anyway, Christina, what you got from the Bible?
All right, so a couple of verses. As you guys were speaking, just some verses resonated with me. For the Lord your God is living among you. He's a mighty Savior. He will take delight in you with gladness. With his love, he will calm all your fears, and he will rejoice over you with joyful songs. So just going back to how, it's not about us, but it's about how God views us. Like, he delights in us, and that brings us joy as well, And then another verse from Psalm 16:11, you make known to me the path of life. So just that is just, okay, that's my path, that's my purpose, is you will fill me with the joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your hand. So that's just like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to enjoy your presence, and all eternal pleasures will follow, And so,
we said all these things about like we can only find joy in God, but that's not to say like things that bring us happiness. And
there's also gifts.
They're also gifts, and what is their purpose is to point us to the greater delight that we can have in God, right? So like, we're not here to be like, don't be happy about that, like, stink, like, don't be, you can't be happy about that, like, it's a punishment if you're happy about that, or if you're going hiking and you enjoy it, it's like, you can't be, that's not, because all of those things, all of the happiness and the temporary joys that we experience on earth, right, are supposed to point us to like lift up our eyes and be like, wow, this is amazing, but God is greater than this? That's crazy, right? It's all supposed to like point us to God. So I think the problem is when they don't point to the glory of God. And so just to say, like, you can be happy about things, okay? Like, you can find pleasure in things, and that's great. Those are gifts and those are blessings. It's just like to be able to like catch ourselves when we think that those things are the ultimate, or when those things don't point to God, and how greater
complete satisfaction in him.
How much greater joy there is in our fellowship with God.
Y'all, what a swell discussion. I liked it a lot. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But guys, I hope that you enjoyed our discussion, that maybe it gave you something to chew on. If you want to, think more on this topic, again, we'll have the Paul Tripp Wednesday word source in the link below. And we will be, chugging along with our podcast and talking about other stuffs on other days. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, feedback for us, you can hit us up on our things, our social media things, Instagram, YouTube, wherever you find us, you can contact us. Church. Come find us at church. Fan club corner. We'll be selling t-shirts. Thank y'all for listening. If you guys If you're interested in learning more about God, the Bible / the gospel, Christianity, or are you interested in getting connected into a church near you, let us know and we'll try and help you out in some way. We'll send you resources, help you do some research on stuffs. That's what we're here for. And it's a joy to live with you. I didn't want to say do life because I hate that phrase, but yeah.
Do life together.
Do
Live with you.
it's not for me. Just have a good life. So y'all, yeah, just take care until next time.
Any of this,
I agree. Shoot.